You're listening to the Sales Chameleon Podcast. Smarter sales, stronger growth, simplified.
Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Sales Chameleon Podcast where selling smarter starts. I'm your host, Heather Coggins, and today I'm going to be diving into a mindset shift that's really going to help you change how you approach business, sales, and success. And what prompted this for me is I recently read some really interesting advice that Patrick Bet-David actually posted. And it was super simple, but it was a total game changer for me. And essentially what he said was, don't buy your kids everything you didn't have. Instead, teach them everything you didn't know. And that was one of those things that, when I read it, it kind of stopped me in my tracks and made me really think about it a little bit more. And as I started thinking into it, I started kind of wondering, hey, what if this, same principle was applied to business and sales? Now you might be thinking, Heather, how the hell does a parenting principle like this have anything to do with prospects and customers? And that's a good question. But the reason I pose it is because, as with many parents, too many entrepreneurs, too many salespeople, they end up chasing the things that they never had. So they, end up chasing more leads, more tools, more shortcuts without, really taking the time to actually focus on building the skills that they never learned. And so the truth when it comes to that is, spoiled businesses typically always end up failing, but developed businesses, those are the ones that thrive. And so today what I'm going to be talking about is, really diving into why giving yourself every advantage without building the real skills that you need is only going to lead to short-term success and long-term failure. I'm also going to talk through the key areas of development that every entrepreneur and salesperson needs. And then we'll talk through a couple of examples of how you can kind of make this shift to really help you build sustainable success by focusing on that growth over comfort. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so first I want to start off by talking about why giving yourself everything that you didn't have isn't going to necessarily guarantee success for you in your business, okay? So, when you start looking at giving yourself or your business more tools, providing yourself more leads, having more money, those things don't automatically make you successful, okay? It's what you do with them that matters. And so you can give two separate people $1 million and the outcome of what they do with that $1 million is probably going to look very different, okay? And so, if we start looking into some common business and sales mistakes that a lot of salespeople and entrepreneurs tend to make is, first, entrepreneurs who end up spending, hundreds or thousands of dollars on, ads, whether that's PPC, whether that's meta ads, whatever it is. They spend all this money on ads, but they don't truly understand their market. And so, don't get me wrong, ads can be extremely effective, but you have to know your target audience. Okay, so that's one common business and sales mistake. So another common business and sales mistake is really going to be those salespeople who rely heavily on scripts versus truly taking the time to understand what their customer actually needs, what their customer's vision of value is, and how they prefer to communicate and be influenced. And then thirdly, as far as common business and sales mistakes, you've got those new business owners who just end up chasing all of those, shiny objects instead of taking the time to really actually master the fundamentals. And so when we look at, okay, so how do I avoid those kind of common pitfalls and focus on really developing myself and my business over spoiling myself with all those things that I never had. And so if we look at an example, again, just imagine, two different sales reps, right? And in this case, they can even be new sales reps. And so rep A, we'll call them, they get unlimited leads, but no training. So they end up burning through all of those leads without actually closing any deals, or maybe they close very few deals, okay? Meanwhile, the second rep B, we'll call them, They have fewer leads, but they've taken the time to, really learn how to ask great discovery questions to really understand their customer's need and vision of value. They've learned how to build those relationships, and ultimately they close more effectively because of it. So if you look at the difference between the two, who do you think is going to succeed in the long run? It's going to be that second rep who's really taken the time to, perfect or master those fundamentals. And so the key takeaway here is, again, it's not about what you have. It's about what you build and what you do with what you have. Okay. And so, how do you kind of transition away from spoiling yourself and into more of that, teaching yourself what you didn't know and having that growth over comfort mindset? And so first, you really have to take a step back to determine what you should focus on developing. And I'm going to help you out with this. I'm going to give you 3 main pillars of business and sales success that, you should really focus on, that's going to help you kind of lean into that growth mindset. And the first pillar, I've talked about this on previous episodes, is going to be your mindset, okay? What you need to first start off doing is really shifting from, hey, I want these instant results, to, hey, I'm looking for long-term mastery, okay? Secondly, you've got to develop and master a skill set. So you've got to master the communication, master the strategy, and really master that adaptability as far as being able to communicate with different social styles and people that have different communication preferences from you. And then the third pillar is going to be your process. So build those repeatable systems that are going to help set you up for consistency and ultimately help make your life easier in the long term. All right, so let's take an example. Let's say you've got a business owner who focused on building customer relationships instead of just ads. They're going to see, anywhere upwards of like a 40% increase in repeat business because they took the time to develop that trust instead of, just chasing those sales. So as you, go through and identify those major skills or those processes that you've been avoiding, and you start, implementing the skills that you need to improve those, keep in mind, although business trends do change, skills and don't. Okay. And so you really have to develop that business and sales mindset that's going to outlast any of those market trends. Because when businesses rely solely on quick wins, they end up depending on hacks instead of habits. They end up focusing on, that short-term revenue instead of that long-term sustainability. And ultimately, they end up chasing the latest trends instead of actually mastering the basics and putting something out there that their customers truly want. Now, the businesses that last, however, they end up investing in training before they invest in any kind of tools. They put the systems before they end up trying to scale up, and they focus on those customer relationships before they focus on trying to get those quick wins and that quick sales, the quick business, right? And so if you, take an example of, like a struggling consultant who's maybe spent the past several months, tweaking their website, tweaking their ads, but they never took the time to, focus on trying to improve their sales conversations, they probably aren't going to be as successful. But let's say they've taken the time to start working on that consultative selling, that versatile selling approach. Now they're able to double their closing rate because they've developed the skill, not just the strategy. Okay. And so before you invest in another tool, before you invest in another course, an ad campaign, any of that, ask yourself first, do I have the right skill set to even maximize any of this? Okay. And so as I start bringing this to a close, I want to leave you with a few takeaways and then an actionable item. And so just to recap, I want to start with reminding you that success isn't about what you get. It's all about what you build, okay? More tools, more leads, more money, none of that's going to necessarily help if you don't have the skills to be able to use those things effectively, okay? And at the end of the day, the best entrepreneurs and salespeople, they spend the time and energy on developing their mindset, developing their skill set, and really developing their processes before they end up chasing those shortcuts. And so as your actionable item, what I encourage you to do is, just start by picking one area of your business or your sales process that needs some real development and start working on that over the next few weeks and see how that works. But that is going to do it for today's episode. Please make sure if this resonated with you or you think that it may resonate with someone else, that you're sharing it with a fellow entrepreneur or salesperson who needs to hear it. Also, please make sure that you're hitting the subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. And until next time, keep growing, stay adaptable, and I will catch you on the next one.